Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Christian Humanist. I'm Damien. The topic for today, well, it's something different. We're going to be talking about a person named Gary V, or Gary Vaynerchuk, who is basically a online entrepreneur, an internet guru, so to speak, some guy in marketing. He's made a name for himself in the digital space by exploiting platforms like YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, well, which is basically everyone these days. But he's done really well at really, producing content and delivering value, and hence, his large followership. And also, he's been, really pushing for, people to, push themselves in the area of work, entrepreneurship, and I guess to some extent in areas like personal development and so on. Admittedly, this is something that is true to, well, most of us really now. Pretty much whatever you do in the digital space at some level corresponds to these areas of putting yourself out there, content creation, promotion, adding value, and also being or becoming the best version of yourself. I mean, this is now really the jargon of the modern world, if you think about it. And I think people like Gary Vee have really done well. I mean, I think they could be one of the. I think they could be. I won't say pioneers, but they've been playing a leading role. I think when this YouTube wave started picking up and other platforms, these guys really were ahead. They were the ones leading it. It seems to me anyway. Gary Vee. Okay, so what's the problem here? Now, of course, first off, for those who are not, who are here for the first time, this channel is called the Christian Humanist. So I talk about topics that pertain to religion, Christianity mainly, but also issues that pertain to life, society, culture. Okay, and try to provide a Christian perspective. Okay, a Christian outlook, so to speak. But critically, though, it's not in a conventional manner. It's not very specifically or traditionally or classically Christian, in a dogmatic sense, I would say, but at least in an evangelical sense. Okay, it's not really focused on proselytization. It's not really about evangelization. Okay, so that's just a quick overview for those who don't who don't know what this channel is. I probably should have said that at the beginning, but we'll get there. We'll get there. So anyway, so Gary Vee. Okay, what's the problem here? Okay, why am I bringing this guy up here on the Christian Humanist? Okay, well, what's the problem with this individual? What has he said? Okay, so this video, this issue that I'm bringing up here, goes back to 2019, I think, right? Where he said, I think in some discussion with some people who are trying to pitch some idea to him. This is something he does. He brings in guys who have business ideas, and he tries to fund them, support them, and he probably buys a stake. He does those sort of things, right? Something akin to venture capital, one could say, but it's his own flavor, so to speak. Anyway, so what happened was in this particular video, this is from 2019, Gary Vaynerchuk, right? He basically said, okay, I'll basically put a clip here now, sort of a sort of edited version of it for you to watch, and you get what I'm saying. But basically, what he says is that 50% of men, okay, in the United States and in the world apparently, should be stay-at-home dads. Okay, men, 50% of men, right? That means half the workforce, or really of the men who are in the workforce, which is the majority, at least they ought to be, other than of course people who have dropped out. Men in the workforce, or men who are going to go into the workforce, which I think is a more pertinent consideration, which I'll get into, should plan, or rather, position themselves to become or be stay-at-home dads. Okay, are you guys with me here? So that's what Gary Vee has said. So before I say anything more, here's a small clip of what he said. So we'll let that run, and I'll get back to it.
I believe that the ratio of stay-at-home moms, stay-at-home dads in America and the world should be 50-50. And I believe it to be 95-5 right now. I believe that we have to change the conversation around success for men, because we've done a nice job, long way to go, but we've done a nice job in the last 30 years to not having a cultural stigma around women in the workplace, but we have not, in any shape or form, allowed the following. I am raising my hand. My name is Rick. I am a wildly nurturing guy. I am not an alpha killer professionally, either in employee nor in entrepreneurship. I believe in this relationship with Susan that I can nurture and destroy the raising of these three children 24/7, so that they go on to have incredible lives and things of that nature. And that is fulfillment for me. I am passionate to try to start this conversation, because I hear it nowhere, of giving permission for every man out there who is desperately interested in being a stay-at-home dad, because they believe that they can crush that incredible task. It makes 100% intuitive, one man's intuitive sense, that the ratio of stay-at-home mom and stay-at-home dad should be 50-50.
Okay, so there you go. So there we have Gary Vee. I'm sure most of you guys know who he is. If you're in the digital space, even if you don't know, you at least know his followership. You may Google him. He has a lot of followers in the millions. Hence, his points are, I think, are worth considering at least in a discussion such as this. I mean, we are after all talking about values and ethics and moral principles as it pertains to our lives, which is what Christianity is at one level. So okay, so what is the problem here? What is the problem with what Mr. Gary Vaynerchuk is saying? The men, or 50% of men, should be stay-at-home dads. Okay, the first issue is this. Okay, the fact that he's coming up with this idea. Okay, the fact that he's saying this sort of thing and just putting it out there. Okay. Okay. Now, the deeper issue here is not the content of the message itself, but rather it's the sense of entitlement, the sense of intellectual entitlement, which I think comes from people in that kind of position. Okay, when you have people like Gary Vee, and in fact, I've seen other examples of people, who are not specifically knowledgeable in this specific area, but they just speak on a variety of issues as if they are knowledgeable. Okay, and again, I don't mean this specifically as criticism of Gary Vee, but this is just an issue which I think is worth considering. People, owing to the fact that they have a large followership, okay, owing to the fact that they have a large subscriber base, they feel they're entitled to have an opinion on everything and anything, okay, and just say whatever they want to. Okay, that is something for us to consider. Okay, that's just a sort of a general point, a general problem point, which I think the listener ought to consider. Hey, that could apply to me as well at some point. So that is a danger that applies to all of us, but it is something that we need to be aware of. What's the main issue here? What is the real problem with this idea of 50% of men should be stay-at-home dads? See, the first problem is this. Okay, what Gary Vee is assuming, okay, or what Gary Vee seems to be operating from, the thought process, is that it is a case of a man and a woman who are already in a relationship, okay, and at which point the man decides, okay, oh, you know what, I'm going to stay at home. I'm going to stay at home and take care of the baby whenever the baby comes around, okay, and then the girl is going to, once she's given birth, she's going to go back to the workplace and she's going to make the money, bring in the dough, bring in the bacon, whatever the expression is, put food on the table, and then the guy's going to take care of the child. He's going to be the nurturing one, carrying the baby around, whatever. The first problem is this, and this is the one that does not get much attention, it seems to me, is that assumes falsely, it seems to me, that somehow a girl is going to be down with the idea of going out with a man, okay, or accepting a man or marrying a man, for that matter, who is going to be, or who intends to be a stay-at-home dad. Okay, are you guys with me here? So it is not a question of someone getting married in a relationship and then oh look, the baby's here. And the girl's gonna say, you know what, my trimester, semester, whatever the expression is, okay, now that I've had the baby, I need to go back to work. But the idea is that somehow at that point, the man is gonna say, you know what, I'm gonna sit here and take care of the baby, but you go back to work. Okay, I'll take over the responsibilities. Now, forgetting about things like, breastfeeding and, the mother-child bonding, right, which we can get into the biological dimension, okay, that's, let's not even go there for now. The primary issue here is this. We have to assume the stay-at-home dad mantra or the narrative or the decision point kicks in at the point of birth, when the child is born and everything is done and dusted, at which point this point becomes pertinent. Oh, look, let's go and, you go to work, I'll stay at home and take care of the baby. This for me is problematic for a number of reasons. First of all, what kind of a girl is going to go out with a guy, okay, who intends to stay at home and take care of the baby? Okay, has anyone pondered that question? The problem here is this. The whole idea of a stay-at-home dad fails to consider, okay, the driving incentives when it comes to dating and relationships, okay? As a starting point, women, as far as I can understand, are not going to date a guy who is not working, okay, who is not doing something in terms of his career, okay, who's not in the workplace, who's not producing value, who's not at least not in, doing a degree or something, who's not in academics, okay, or he's not, or for that matter, an entrepreneur, okay, pretty much everything that makes a woman desirable, okay, or makes a man desirable to a woman, at some level corresponds to what he does. Okay, what do you do? That is the most pertinent question. Okay, as a guy, if you talk to a girl, you're going to talk about yourself, right? You're going to talk about what you do, your work, your career, your aspirations, your goals. Okay, imagine, right? You're in a situation where you're speaking to a girl. Let's say you find a girl interesting or you find a girl attractive. You go up to her and you say, hey, this and this. I'm here. You introduce yourself. Exchange pleasantries, provided that she's receptive, and then you start talking about yourself. Okay, and in which one you're going to speak about either what you do, what you're going to do. Okay. Imagine saying that you're going to, you're planning to become a stay-at-home dad. Okay, I'm going to, get married or, settle down, and if the girl, has a baby, she's going to go back to work. I'm going to I'm going to stay back and take care of the baby. Okay, imagine how ridiculous that sounds. Okay, and look, folks, this is serious because what we're getting at, I think, with people like Gary Vee, is that they're looking at this in a rather one-dimensional way. They're failing to consider the dynamics of mating and dating. Okay, they're failing to consider the dynamics of biology, really. Okay, stigma exists for a reason. Okay, stigmas exist for a very legitimate cause, oftentimes. Okay, not always, of course. In some countries, women. Let me think of an example, like women, losing their virginity, before they get married. That is a stigma. Okay, now that is not ideal in the Western world because we don't, ostracize people for those kinds of decisions. That's good. Okay, but critically, though, certain kinds of stigma exist for a reason. Okay, some guy is a serial killer. Okay, he should not be allowed in society. That's a legal issue, but critically, it's a social issue because before you get to the question of legality and whether it's acceptable or not, it is a moral question. It's an ethical question. Okay, can we live with someone who's inclined to kill people? Okay, or the same thing with people who are violent, aggressive, people who are perpetual liars. Okay. Why do companies vet people before they let them in? Why do companies vet potential employees for skills, but also for attitude, for work ethic, for commitment? Okay, the whole idea of having a trial period. Okay, what is this guy going to do when he becomes a permanent employee? Okay, the same logic applies in relationships. Okay, I mean, in fact, the whole idea of going out, okay, the whole the dating process, okay, is about one person vetting the other and vice versa. Okay, that is what dating is really. I mean, especially talking about long-term relationships, something which can lead to marriage and family potentially. Okay, so when someone like Gary Vee comes and says, the stigma associated with men staying at home, okay, he's not considering the underlying factors and forces that gives rise to the stigma. Okay, I guess with me here. So I mean, I can think of an example going back. I don't know. So this girl, okay, that was this girl I liked. Okay, I went up to her, okay, and she was about my age, and I was like, trying to figure out what I was going to do and so on. So she was attractive, so I just went up to her, spoke to her, and so on, and then I asked her what she was doing, etc. And she was doing a degree in, I think, in business management or something. So she was, she was okay, and I was at the time, unemployed, okay, and not doing a degree. So I was basically going into a degree at the moment. Right? I was going to go in, but at that particular moment, I was not doing anything, just specific. And that point came up, and I can just see her reaction. Okay, she was basically saying, what, I'm not interested. Okay, it's funny, right? Just knowing that bit of information, okay, that this guy at that particular moment is not doing anything. Okay, that immediately became a turnoff. Okay, now of course, once you get past it, once you're working, once you're doing a degree, once you're committed to in some way towards progressing your life, your career, these problems tend to get resolved. Okay, and critically, when you come in a relational sense, you have more to talk about, you have more things to do. Okay, I mean, the financial question, which I'll get into in a moment, but critically, just on the face of it, just conversationally, just attitudinally, okay, you're not going to get very far as a guy, as a man, if your aim is to become in this case, as Mr. Gary Vee preaches, to become a stay-at-home dad. Okay, I don't know what he's saying really. I mean, this makes no sense. I mean, the assumption is that somehow men can expect women to take care of them. I mean, isn't the whole point of the dating market is a resource question? Okay, ultimately, as a man, your success in the dating world is predicated on your capacity to garner resources, is it not? If you're a guy, if you can make money, if you can, bring in the dough, so to speak, and that in turn, and the lifestyle it corresponds to, that increases or elevates or augments your chances in the dating world, does it not? Okay, so what is he saying? Okay, if your goal is to be a stay-at-home dad, as Mr. Gary Vee says, he speaks very forcefully. He's saying, I'm passionate about. It's almost like this guy. I don't know who the hell. I mean, again, I don't know what his personal life is, but he's speaking as if just because he has his opinion, people are going to listen to what he says and they're going to agree with it. But the point is, people like this saying whatever they want, and people taking them serious. I'm not sure to what extent people will take this sort of thing seriously, but it is worth considering for us. Okay, Gary Vee is saying, people or men should be stay-at-home dads, not only in the United States but across the world. I mean, think about it. Imagine how that sort of thing will work out in the Islamic world. Okay, just saying, right? Go to the Islamic countries and say, 50% of guys should be stay-at-home dads, the other 50, the women should, go back to work. I mean, anyway, that's just, probably the kind of a certain set of American hubris, but that's fine. That's acceptable. I mean, that's understandable. We all know all that. We all know where that comes from. But really, though, what he's saying does not make any sense. Okay, and critically, though, it's problematic for men, especially for young men. Okay, if you're a young guy, finishing school, going into college, whatever, you cannot set yourself up to be a stay-at-home dad. Okay, it makes no sense. Okay, your girls are not going to date you. Okay, and they're not going to find you attractive. More critically, though, you're not going to be desirable to women from your own standpoint. Think of it this way, guys. If you're unemployed, okay, do you think you can go out in the marketplace and hit on girls? It doesn't make much sense. You don't have the social confidence to do so. Your ability to put yourself out there, okay, when it comes to women, is derived from your social status. Is derived from your your work or your career. And it's a question. It's a pretty simple example, right? The question of why high status men have no trouble attracting women, okay, whether it's on dating apps or in the real world, is a question of value, it's a question of worth, and critically, it's a question of earnings power, okay, which in turn would enable women to, find comfort. They can sit back and relax and have the baby later on, of course, and be protected, be provided for, and not have the need to work. Okay, that's the critical point here. Okay, as opposed to in this case where the woman is compelled to work and there's no way out for her. She has to give birth to the child. That's an ordeal in itself, and then she has to go back to work and then just take care of this deadbeat mother, and that is a problem, guys. Okay, so just to close this up, and again before I do it, let me just bring some theology into the equation, because we are talking about the Christian humanist here. Now, how does this work in a biblical sense? How does it work in a Christological sense? Okay, clearly this is not Christian. Okay, if you're a Christian guy and a man, okay, or in any way familiar with the Christian worldview, Okay, I mean, again, first of all, I'm not a big fan of providing examples from scripture, but it is a worthy consideration. Okay, in the Bible, okay, man is created first, and then woman. Okay, and the idea is the complementarity of the sexes. Okay, the girl is meant to support the guy is meant to provide work. That was God's plan, so to speak. But it was also the curse. Okay, when God says to Adam, you have to work, and by the sweat of your brow, you will make your way, right? And of course, to Eve, he says, the childbearing issue, right? But anyway, the critical point, listener, is that the biological determinism that underpins the social outworking of our career choices, okay? That is something we cannot miss, okay? The fact that men are predisposed to work and to make money and to succeed in the workplace, okay? That is the way the world is. You cannot change its nature, okay? The fact that women have a stronger predilection for motherhood, or more critically, to be a homemaker, to stay at home, that is also ingrained into nature, no matter what society may say or otherwise, okay? Now, these people like Gary Vee, and I think other people on the left, or whatever these guys call themselves, okay, they're trying to say we can make society the way we think it ought to be, okay? We can make society function a certain way, and they're not considering the biological foundational factors, okay? But before you get to any of those things, okay, the fact is, simply put, from a practical standpoint, as a guy, as a man, as a young man, okay, you listen to these kinds of people say this sort of things, okay, become a stay-at-home dad. What they're saying is you do nothing, okay? You stay at home, don't work, don't make money, don't succeed, okay? And then what? What's going to happen? I'll tell you, folks. I'll tell you what's going to happen. Let me just put something conspiratorial here, okay? If 50% of guys plan to become stay-at-home dads, okay, 50% of young men aspire to become stay-at-home dads who don't work, who who aspire to take care of their babies, okay, and keep them around. I mean, it sounds ridiculous, really. I mean, but let's just say it works out that way. Right? Let's just say all the young men coming forward, let's say Generation Z onward, young men try to become stay-at-home dads or aspire to become stay-at-home dads. So they may study, they may not study. They may work, they may not work. What will happen is that all the girls will work and study and do well in the workplace, but they're not going to marry any of these guys. Okay, all these stay-at-home dads wannabes are going to be useless. They'll be discarded. They'll be, in an evolutionary sense, they'll be just thrown out. Okay, they're not going to be accepted. Okay, we're not going to bang them. They're not going to go out with them. They're not going to sleep with them. They're not going to, and they're certainly not going to have kids with them. Okay, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? I'll tell you what's going to happen. All the guys who do work, who do succeed, okay, who do make it in the real world, they'll be getting all the, right? And all these girls, and I'll tell you, they'll gladly gravitate towards men who have more than a single partner. Okay, that's what's going to happen. That's a conspiratorial view, listener. I'm just putting it out there for you to consider. Okay, the whole stay-at-home dad thing is about disempowering men. If it if it gains traction, I don't know if it will. But since this is Gary Vee, the person who knows everything, who has a lot to say about everything these days, him saying people 50% of men should become stay-at-home dads. I mean, this is freaking ridiculous, really. I mean, this is a more serious issue besides the fact that it is ridiculous. Okay, is that it sends out the wrong message for young men. Okay, and if you have a society where young men aspire to become stay-at-home dads, I don't aspire to do anything. Really, that's what's really being said here. You will become a loser. You will not get laid. You'll be lonely for the rest of your life. And what will happen is all those girls who do well, they're going to work anyway, right? They'll be up for grabs. The men who do work, the men who do succeed, the men who do make it in life, they'll have a lot of girls to choose from, and they'll probably choose all of them. Okay, and the stay-at-home dad wannabe, you're a deadbeat, you're a loser, and you're, in an evolutionary sense, you're taken out of the equation. And I would say, in some respects, if you choose to listen to these kinds of people seriously, people like Gary Vee who are saying these sort of things, you probably deserve to.